off by accident, sorry.
There we are.
Is that too bright with the window open?
Nope.
Nope. Okay.
It's a nice morning here.
It is a beautiful morning.
It's supposed to rain at the end of the day, but the day will be fine, so that's okay.
Good. I have some fencing to finish.
Ah. Well, we've got the whole family coming tomorrow for dinner, so we got work to do.
Oh,
the kitty, there's the...
So
How was your week?
It was like full on. It was good. It was good. It's just, you know, this time of year, just trying to finish and squeeze every penny out of research, like out of grant money, and, you know, make sure we got all those things, you know, and kids are kind of,
yes. And the teachers are,
yeah. Their report cards were due yesterday, so yeah, things should kind of ease off for them a little bit, but yeah. Anyway, it's all good.
When people say to you, you know, oh, well, it's June and things are winding down, right? And you go, no.
No, they wind up.
And, you know, it's also the time of year, I know I've told you this before, but that all the grievances come in about this time of year. You talk to any Federation staff, they will tell you that Christmas and June are when people make these terrible mistakes. Yeah. And it takes years to get them corrected. So if you're ever talking to your staff, just say, you know, just be careful what you say and do. I know you're stressed, but we've got to get through to the end of the year without, you know, causing any serious damage either to ourselves or others.
Yeah.
Including ourselves, you know.
Yeah.
Also talking to myself. I mean, I want to be careful that I don't get so stressed that I say or do something I regret. Yeah. Exactly. You tend to not stop thinking about yourself and worrying about everybody else, but you also have to model that kind of calm composure and being careful what you say, but you know, you also have to do that stimulus response check, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, that's upsetting. Let me think this out.
Yeah. I had an email that I got at night that was impacted the next day, and I did my first draft and erased that, and did my second draft and erased that, and then put the computer away, went and did something else, and then wrote a very kind third draft. You know, it's just like, you know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I had a very bad experience at the curling club with one of the members, and I came home and I wrote this blistering, you know, note about how I felt and blah, blah, blah. And then I put it away. And then I came back and I looked at it again, erased it all, started over. And then I never sent it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
it just helped to kind of get your ideas out, and then.
Oh, yeah. And I just decided, you know, this wasn't the first time she'd been really offensive. So I'm just going to stay a long way away from her. You know, I'm pleasant, but I don't get into conversation. And I just, you know, there's this little space here I need from you.
Yeah, exactly.
And the anger doesn't last that long. It kind of folds into a difficult situation, and, you know, you don't want to make it any worse, and it's likely what it is.
Yep.
Because I always think I can solve everything, you know. I go around with, well, there's always a solution to everything, Jackie.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes there isn't.
Sometimes distance is the solution. Yeah.
Maybe it's not mine to solve, you know?
Yeah. I hear you. Yeah. Oh dear.
And
Well,
I think women are even worse at that than men. I mean, they always think that they're the fixers, you know,
yeah.
that it's your responsibility to fix this.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. There are quite a few issues out there, but yeah, I think that's a big thing about moving to administration is you just can't do it all. So you have to just figure out which ones are gonna.
But they also look to you to solve everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, it takes a lot of strength to say, you know what, I'm not sure that I can do that, or I'm not sure I'm the person to do that. I'll give it some thought, but maybe we need some more help.
Hmm. Yeah.
Or maybe this is something that you need to think about a little longer and then we'll talk later.
Yeah. That's a good one. See, it's the collecting those things to say all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
What did Peter Moffat taught me a really good line? What was it? If I always consider conflict as an opportunity to learn and improve things, then I can always find a solution.
Mm. Yep.
I mean, it's just a different way of framing conflict, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Conflict is just a symptom that there's something that needs to be looked at. Yeah.
But he also said, you don't have to tell everybody everything you know.
No.
He
No,
used,
because
he used an analogy of your brains coming out your mouth. You know, you just don't have to tell them everything you know. You know,
yeah.
just think and listen and observe. And, you know, I mean, sometimes you certainly have to do,
Yeah.
but you might not have to do it as fast as you think you have to do it or as fast as others think it needs to be done.
Yeah.
And that, you know, the old line about an average solution is better than the perfect one at the right time. An average solution at the right time is better than the perfect solution when you
Right.
don't need it anymore.
Yeah, I like that.
I don't like average solutions, as you probably don't either.
Yeah. No. But
Sometimes you have to make a decision.
mhm.
That's it, the decision. An average decision is sometimes the best decision
Yeah,
because you need it right then.
I've got a friend coming to help.
Ah, baby.
No.
That looks a lot like my old Carlos.
Aw. He this one excels at coming when you're busy doing something else. He's not interested in coming to cuddle when you're just sitting there wanting a cuddle. It's just when you're working.
Amazing intuition, eh?
Uh-huh. Yep. Interesting little boy. Anyway,
So
I've been
long
what's that?
list of things you have to get done before the end of the year.
Oh yeah, yeah. But it's like a reel of things that you just put out of focus while you concentrate on the first one. Then you bring it back up and which one am I going to do next? And then put it away. Yeah. Yeah.
So when do the kids leave?
Sorry.
When are the kids done?
The Thursday, the 26th. And then we have a 27th is the PD day. So we have 9 more school days.
No,
Yeah.
it isn't long.
No, no, no.
And
And it's,
you're packing to leave, eh?
yeah, I'm not, particularly worried. I have the week after they're done. So I'm going to, and I've just packed, obviously to move from one to the next. So I did get rid of a lot of stuff. So, or I didn't really have a lot of stuff to get rid of, but like passing on the alert stuff to somebody else. So yeah, and I haven't done anything differently with Ted's filing system or anything. I just kept everything because I knew going in that I probably wasn't going to be staying past September, so I didn't make any changes because I thought, oh, there's no point, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, and most things are on the computer now too, which is,
Yeah.
kind of, that's still a sorting process too, isn't it?
That's something I need to do. Like I'm thinking about some of the things that I'm doing now and think, okay, so I have normally organized this volunteer breakfast thing. So I'm going to make sure I email that to this person and store it in the principals folder. And yeah, yeah. So I do have to go through, and there's a lot I'm going to have to purge and get rid of. And yeah, it's a good, like, it's good timing because uh, our ICT is changing formats so that, like, traditionally we've had an online, like a, what's it called, a network storage file folder, and they're getting rid of that one, and we're now storing it all in Office 365. So by August, everybody has to clear this one drive, and that's where I've got most of my stuff. So I will go through and either put that onto an external drive for now, and or just get rid of it. And it's difficult because, you know, you think, thinking of as a researcher, or I will, if I ever go back, blah 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 blah, what will I need? And then you end up putting it onto a storage drive that you never go back and look at. So I've got like 5
Or
of these.
when you were going and looking for your writing and couldn't find it.
Yeah.
And that happens all the time. And the other thing is, when I'm writing, I put everything on the desktop because I'm moving things in and out and so on. So right now my desktop looks just terrible. So that's one of the jobs. After I get something written, you know, then I go back and say, all right, which of these do I need in the hard drive, and you know, which can go on the external drive and I don't need it. And of course, it's never where you're looking for it when you're looking for it.
Yeah.
But I'm going to try this time. I call this the ARNA 2019 session paper, and try to put everything in that folder. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's, you know, keeping things organized. Just and then my study starts to look like that too. There's papers everywhere. So now that I got the first draft done, I've got all the papers put away, except I've got to do that repository of all my writing. Put that in my Spanglefish website. And so I've got them all, I think. It's just putting them in chronological order.
Yeah.
And making sure if I have URLs to put them in.
Yeah.
So I'll do a first draft, get it done, and then I'll go and check.
This cat is a pain. He likes to take the beautiful things we've got and rip them down.
Uh-oh.
Which is why the one here has some scratches in it. They're lovely eco blinds that keep the heat out in the summer and keep the warmth in the winter. And he likes to rip them.
That's not good.
No.
I just bought all new blinds too. We used to have awnings, you know, exterior awnings.
Yeah.
And you know what? They're fabulous for keeping the house cool in the summer.
Yes.
But nobody has awnings. So
Really?
nobody. So I'm not throwing the frames out.
No.
But so I bought blinds for all the windows.
Yeah. Our house design we're doing with, like, what do you call it? Like the roof line is going to be coming over a certain amount, because basically for that exact reason, if you're using solar, passive solar energy to heat your house or to cool, right? You want a 4-foot overhang over your windows so that in the winter the sun's coming straight in and you can get it into the house, but in the summer when it's higher, it hits the awning or the overhanging roof line, for that very reason. So we will hopefully have permanent awnings, so to speak. Yeah.
So my head's now into what do I want to present, in my few minutes in the session that gives people a sense of what's in the paper, and then will then be part of the dialogue going forward, both with the session group and with the audience, because we like to make that interactive.
Yeah.
So.
And I it's interesting. I think this paper is beautiful, Jackie. And
Oh.
I really do. And I think, I don't know if it's my headspace or the article, but I think it feels different. It feels, like, I think one thing I worry about in when I haven't done one for a while, but when we do the papers and we're talking essentially about the same thing. We're talking about our values. We're talking about the nature of our influence and that sort of thing. And sometimes I feel like I'm saying the same thing over and over again. But I came away from this one feeling it feels very fresh. It feels very different. I don't know why, but well, I could probably come. I don't know. I just like the way you've organized it, and I think it's lovely. And yeah, and like I focused because I'm trying to look at giving you some. I'm trying to reinforce any sort of data you have for verifying your claims, sort of thing. I quickly focused on the part B where you're talking about me so that I could give a response to you that may be part of their validation. And so although I've looked at the other areas, I kind of have tried to really focus on this one. And I've what I was writing when I said I'll just be a minute is sort of a written thing that if you want to use, and it's the last part I've just added in some more bullet points that I want to finish when we're done here. But I really think that there's a lot of meat to this section about the nature of the conversation and how we research. And in my initial reaction, I'll just read to you, well, maybe paraphrase, but basically I see this space that we're creating here, that you've created, is a really rich, reflective research space for me. And I go into these conversations either explicitly, intentionally, or just automatically reflecting on my own practice and values. And I feel it's a given in what we do when we're talking to each other. And
does that mean living culture of inquiry to you? Does that mean that to you?
It does. But I also think it's more of that. I think it's like when I looked back at that video clip that you put in the paper, I see two things. I see you intentionally. I think you're living your ontology, and I hear and see that in what you say and do in our conversations. But I also know, just myself going into the conversation, that that's a given part of our conversation, that love and trust, that's there. And I see the examples of it in what you say, in terms of, like, even that video clip, there are about 3 times where you're checking on my well-being in terms of, is your family getting up? Do you need to go, sort of thing? Or it, look, if this time works for you the next time, let's use that, because you're aware that I've got these kids and report cards and all the rest. And then you explicitly say, I don't want you to spend your Sunday looking for this video clip because you need to relax, like, so you explicitly do those things that make it a loving, caring, trusting space to be. I know you are looking out for my well-being, but it's also, I know that you understand sort of the research as well behind the things that and I think that comes into the epistemology, right? Like you understand the things that go into the foundation for a good research relationship. So you're living your values at the same time as you're understanding that this is good stuff to do to get research done in the kind of research we're doing. Because when you're doing living educational theory, you can't just dive into examining your values and how you're living them without it being emotional at times or personal. And so it's kind of, you have to have this kind of relationship in order to do this kind of research, but it's also you living your values as well. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. It's
Okay.
exactly dead on. Perfect.
So yeah. So and then I'm thinking about that whole video clip that I had that was like an older clip of how we use these videos to do our research. And I think the video is still valid, but it was funny looking back at it and thinking, oh wow, that's so long ago.
Well, what are you talking about now?
So I'm talking about how we, so I see things in this video of how you're intentionally setting it up, but you're also living your values in order to facilitate the kind of research we're doing. And it's, the research is very much a part of who we are and what we do in our relationship. But we're also aware, I'm aware in the moment, even of making this video, that I'm going to be using this video as part of the research into what I'm doing. And so I'm using this video as a tool, and you are part of the, like, our relationship. I am looking at these videos to see, how is Jackie reacting to what I'm saying? Or, oh, if I'm scrubbing through the video, you know, Jackie had a response to that. What was that? What did I just say? You know, and how did she react to that? And do I agree with her reaction? Do I think this is a significant point? Or am I looking at my own body language and saying, okay, that was a significant point for me because I'm very animated when I'm talking about that. What was I saying? And then does that jive with what I believe or not? And so there's a lot of going back and using the tool of our relationship as a tool. Does that make sense?
As data.
Yeah, as data. Yeah, basically. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that you're talking about these in your paper. You're talking about the relationship, the conversations that we're having, and I see that there is, you know, the intentional setting up the conditions that are good for research, but there's also the, you know, you're just trying to be who you are, to live according to your values, and then beyond that, we're using that relationship as data for our research, and there's a lot of reflection in the moment after the conversation, that's using that dialogue. Don't know if any of that made sense.
Well, I mean, once you, for me, articulating what I'm thinking and people responding to that articulation is what moves my thinking on, you know. So it's part of the relationship. It's part, I mean, it makes me feel really good, you know, emotionally and psychologically, but it's also a way of trying to do better, you know, to try to be better, to provide better support, encouragement for you, to help, you know, your life be more joyful, to use Liz's word, you know, it's about that I want your life to be wonderful. And I mean, we both know that you have days that are not wonderful.
Yeah.
And if I can in any way help you, you know, have a better life in general, and in particular in your work, you take that into your school with those kids and those families and make their lives better.
Yeah.
So I don't, would you call that activism?
It's interesting because when I think of the word activism, there's all sorts of connotations with that. I think you're actively.
Blackboards and posters.
Oh,
and
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. But it is activism in the true sense of the word, that you're taking action to have an effect on, and you're actively promoting something that's going to make a difference. And yes, so yes. Yeah.
Well, that was my thought on it. But then one of my reviewers said, well, how is this activism? And I'm in the paper, I'm clearly not clear that I think this is a kind of activism, making a better social world, so that in education, kids get more opportunities to learn and be critical thinkers and, make a contribution to a better world themselves. I mean, that's what the legacy is for all of us, isn't it?
Yeah.
Your children and all the children of the families in the schools that you work with and have worked with, the teachers in Barn. I mean, to me, that's all part of social activism.
Yep, I agree. And I think there's a lot that comes at you as a teacher, as an administrator, and it's so easy to get bogged down in things that the biggest impact I think you've had on me is that intentional approach to doing this kind of work that has an impact, and that I would describe as activism, because we're trying to intentionally take action that's going to improve things, and it's not just improve them for ourselves, but it's to have an effect to change the culture and the way people are interacting with each other in a school. Yeah, so yes.
I mean, one of the base concepts that I have very solidly is, when we give teachers the permission to improve what they do by asking their own questions and taking responsibility for their own learning and improvement, that, has the potential of changing the whole system of schooling, as opposed to this top down, here's the curriculum on your head, and you go and tick all the boxes. Well, that's not teaching. The teaching is taking what you've got, those lovely little kids in front of you, and saying, okay, what do you know? What is there now in what I need to do so that we move you from where you are to the next stage, both intellectually, but also socially, and psychologically.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, then you at the end of the formal schooling, you have children who are self-assessors, who know who they are, how they learn, what they need to do to improve.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds pretty simplistic, but it's very complex.
It is. It is. And I think one of the things that I struggle with within that is that I guess when I think of there being, like, it doesn't work just to have each individual go through that process if there's not an understanding of some of the givens that should be in place for, let's say, understanding best practice in math, or understanding sort of, there has to be an understanding of the curriculum and what the richness of it, and what you're that it's actually asking you to do. Like, you've just mentioned a whole bunch of things that are within the curriculum in terms of metacognition and inquiry learning and that sort of thing. And it's really, really deep and rich, and you get some teachers that come through the system that for whatever reason have a really natural, or have developed intentionally, an understanding of those things, and are more prepared and ready to begin at the level that you're talking about. And then there are other teachers who maybe have a deficit in their math understanding, or their understanding of what metacognition is and how to facilitate it. And it's a huge process developing as a teacher to have those competencies and those understandings across the board. I'm thinking elementary, that you're, your social studies, math, phys ed, everything.
Oh, it's a massive job. I mean, it
is a massive job. Yeah. And how do you, like, I certainly see my animals. I certainly see that the approaches to doing this kind of research are facilitating our teaching and understanding of metacognition, and you're teaching the teachers to be researchers so that they can do the same kind of research with their students. Yeah, but
well, we don't all start there. I mean, I didn't start there.
No.
I started out as a very naive young teacher who thought everybody loved poetry and Shakespeare,
Yeah.
I got a brutal wake-up call, but I mean, I didn't allow it to deter me from, thinking that I would love them all to have that love.
Yeah.
But I had to become a lot more practical in how can I make this fun?
Yeah.
And I mean, teenagers, you have to kind of cajole them into, writing poetry. But if you make the link with music, then they get it.
Yeah.
These songs that you love, people wrote those lovely words, and then put them to, sounds. And I mean, I'm not a musician, but I mean, that's the kind of, you have to find those kind of keys to what their affinities are. I love that word, affinities.
Yeah.
That's from special education, and it's about how you teach kids with learning problems. Figure out what their affinities are. What really turns their clock, and cranks their clock, and then you start, okay, now I know what your interest is. Now we're going to find a way in.
Yeah.
So it's kind of this, it's the same theory though. What do those kids know? What do they love to do? How can we build a relationship together? And then how can I get them to learn the skills and knowledge and processes that they need so they can get this huge curriculum under their belts?
Mm-hmm. And it's the same question for staff.
It is.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a process of, yeah. And you're going to, if you can facilitate a teacher through a process of coming to grips with a specific strand, or in the complexity and the depth, then hopefully that will translate to an understanding, because across the curriculum, they're very similar. The idea of metacognition is throughout, right? So if you can get it in one, go deep in one strand and really get that understanding, then hopefully that will translate to the other strands, the other subjects. And
the other thing is that you have to also deal with where the teacher's at. It's the same theory that you just expressed. I mean, so before I talk with you about metacognition, maybe what I think I say is, so how is it that you learn?
Yes. Yeah.
And then, it has some sense to that. Well, how do I learn? And then if you do that kind of reflection, guide them through a process of, well, how do I learn? And then what other ways of learning are there? And then it goes right into, well, how do these kids learn? How can I teach them so they learn? I mean, but you have to kind of do a little bit at a time. I mean, when we teach others how to do living theory, we don't give them the whole barrel full of stuff and say, go do it. You give them a little bit at a time. And you start with what matters to them. Well, how is school staff any different?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you have to individualize, but you have to let them say, what is it that I need to learn?
Yeah.
Because
And
the ownership has to be there.
yeah. And if you, yeah, if you can, I think it'll be very interesting going into a new school and seeing, you know, like, can I, starting with a process like that, over time build momentum? Yeah, and it may already be there. Like, I mean, you go into any staff and there's people that are, you know, the teachers are learning all the time and they're doing things. So I don't want to say how it's going to be or whatever, but the nature of the influence is if you can start to build this culture, and you know, what will it look like in 5 years time, sort of thing, right? And will it speed up the process? And if you can get a staff where that are all using this kind of approach, then the interactions between them strengthen and build and da 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 da. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, I mean, the language is magical in the sense that if you start using the same language, it builds an understanding at a deeper level. So, and you don't kind of dump it on them, but you start using the same words, around responsibility and creativity and intuition. And I mean, if you start with the teacher, then they'll integrate that in a way that you hope that your modeling will allow them to see. If they talk out loud like that to their kids, you will be building that inquiry model, that culture of inquiry,
Yeah.
in the whole space. And if you can engage the parents as well, I mean, that's, then
Yeah.
you're outside the borders already.
I'm taking what you're saying and overlaying it on something that's going to happen this Wednesday. I've got, so there's some teachers in Osprey that have had a real interest and drive for learning about coding and working with coding and that sort of thing with the students. And there's one teacher who's been led our Lego League, and she started it this year, and they went to Mississauga, and it was their first time doing it, and they came 10th out of 27 schools as a first year team, which is like amazing. And it's all about problem solving, and you have these tasks and they have to design and build and problem solve, right? And it's amazing. And then there's another teacher who said, can I do this hacker gal thing where, sure, so she ran a club with these girls, and she taught them basic coding. And then there was a collaborative day across Canada where they spent the day coding, and the girls were like, I wrote 8 pages of code or whatever it was, and they were doing coding that then caused this, created this sort of like a cartoon sort of thing where something's happening, and anyway, it was really cool. And they're so proud of themselves. And so all these pockets of things are happening with coding. And then we got the Speak Up grant where we got money to buy technology equipment for our students who don't go on field trips. And so part of that was to get extra Lego League equipment so this teacher could work with groups that are staying behind on field trips and teach them how to do some of this stuff, and extra coding material and for different
We
grade
have
levels.
kids opting out of the trips because it's more fun to stay back.
No, we have 40% of our student population who, for cultural reasons,
Yes.
do not go on field trips.
No,
but yes, we do have certain people who do stay behind, including one of my sons who didn't go on a trip because he wanted to stay back and do the stuff. Anyway, so yes, in effect, and that's another question is, what's the richness of our in-school special activities versus a field trip? Yeah. So on Wednesday, there's 3 teachers that I'm releasing to explore the resources that we've just bought.
Mm.
And I'm thinking now, as you're talking, okay, need to videotape our conversations and need to have some of that, what you just said a few minutes ago, of, you know, what that vocabulary you were talking about, like, what is possible with these tools? What's the creative process? What are the, you know, what are the things you want teachers to know about the power of these tools, or what they're, you know, what the students might get out of them? Because they're very creative tools, and it's not in the curriculum explicitly that thou shalt teach coding, right? That's not part of the curriculum. But within this,
I bet it is in there somewhere.
yeah, it's inquiry, it's problem solving. It's, you
Yep.
know, one of the tools is you put a marker on this robot and then you code it to draw something. And so there's all sorts of angles and directionality and units. You're going to go 20 centimeters forward, then turn however many degrees. And then the kids, like, I was working with a child helping me to figure out how to use this. And we were trying to draw a hexagon. And so, you know, he said, well, I think this is about 120 degrees. So he put that in, but then it was like the robot didn't go the right way. And we were trying to figure out, oh, it's the external angle, not the internal angle that you have to program, because it's going along the edge of the hexagon, and then it's turning, but you need that external angle, not the one that's inside. Anyway, so all this problem solving you're doing, and I want to somehow capture that in video, what they do on that day, so that they could show it in September and kind of see the kind of activities, and so that, because people aren't going to understand it unless they see the kids interacting with it and the teachers thinking about what it is that, what are we trying to get students to do, or what are students getting out of it, or, you know, and I think that could be a really rich, because they're figuring it out as they go, and that's totally what we want teachers to do with their kids, is figure it out together. Anyway.
So are you thinking of videotaping the event?
Yeah. Videotaping the teachers talking about, like, videotape myself talking with the teachers about what it is that we could do with this day, and what we could do with the video, and what they see the power is of this. Videotape them, you know, figuring out how these things work. Videotape them then in the second part of the day, taking those things into the classroom and working with the kids and seeing what the kids do with it, and then analyzing that video in terms of, okay, what's the ESL application of this? Because this is really rich, interesting activity for kids to do, and they're going to be talking about it, and they're going to be talking in Pennsylvania Dutch, and they're going to be talking in English, and they're not going to have the vocabulary in Pennsylvania Dutch for some of the things that they're thinking about. You know, so I can see this is a vehicle for huge influence. And then there are reflections at the end of the day. Okay, how did that go? What did we learn? What do we still want to communicate to teachers about this? And how are we going to store it? And who's going to have access to it? And anyway, yeah.
Sounds like a research project to me.
It does sound like a research project, Jackie. A research project in one day.
Well, hopefully the effect is longer than a day.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it could be game changing.
Yeah. Anyway, so back to your paper. I can send you my reflections on this part, and as I said, I focused on, my computer just went to sleep. I focused on that one section. I still need to go back and reread the whole thing again, and then give you some, whoops, my battery's getting low. Give you this written feedback. Okay, I can't do my thing one-handed, obviously, my password. I don't know if there's other specific questions you had in mind that you...
Well, it's the usual questions, Cathy, about truthfulness. You know, is it clear as to context? Is it comprehensible, authentic? I mean, does it make sense to you? Is the argument logical? Can you
Yeah.
follow the argument? And
Yes.
do you believe it? You know?
Yeah.
And I guess it's hard for us to do that, but if you were a first time comer to living theory, would you be able to understand?
Yeah. And so one of the big things I felt in reading, especially that one section, and like there were parts that I skipped down to the second part with, or the third part with, because I was very curious about the setting my ego at the door, that section. And I really think, to me, that part felt very fresh and new. And I loved what she said. Where is it? Where it's something about you not bringing your ego into it, which I think allows the love to flow through. I think to be able to show genuine love and also having your ego, they don't play well together in the sandbox. I love that. So if you really want to have somebody feel that emotion, I think you approach a lot of these relationships without ego, and that is, in my experience, rare in higher education. It feels like everybody needs two chairs, one for your body and one for your ego. I love that. That's awesome. And so, yeah, I haven't gotten to the thread of the activism, but just I think that people are really going to hook into it, and the fresh voices of people that are. You're talking about something, but you're playing back and forth with other people responding to what you're doing and talking about it with their own language, reflecting back on you what they feel out of it. I think it's beautiful, and I think it's very authentic. And I still have to go through and read that last bit and read through it again and respond, but I do have a response to sort of what you're saying about the part B, that I'm going to send back to you and see if that's of use. I kind of talked about it at the beginning.
I'm certain it will
Yeah.
be used. And this conversation today has been very useful. I think it's time we did some writing together.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, what we just discussed today is pretty interesting reflection on the worlds we live in.
Yeah. Yep.
And you have a lot to give, Cathy. And I'd love to have my kids in your school.
Oh, thank you. Hi. Hello, Maddie.
I could hear slurping.
Maddie says, I want to cuddle, and I'm all wet because it's raining now.
Oh, is it? Oh.
Okay, you go lie down. Go lie down. Go on. Okay. So
Now, you're not going to spend all day on this. You're going to do a quick response, and then you're going to go and enjoy your animals and your kids and your husband.
Response. Then I'm going to finish reading kindergarten report cards, and I'm going out to garden.
Okay. Not in the rain.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, best time. The mosquitoes aren't too bad,
All right.
It's light, it's a Scottish mist.
Oh, I see. Okay. Wear a big hat.
We got to finish the fence actually before I plant anything.
Mm-hmm.
I can only plant things that are going to grow in a shortened season.
Back to life.
There we go. All right.
Lovely to see you.
Lovely to see you too.
Have a great day.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye.
Love you.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye.